President Cyril Ramaphosa says the deployment of the South African Defence Force is in line with fulfilling South Africa's international obligation towards the SADC mission to support the Democratic Republic of Congo. South Africa has deployed almost 3,000 soldiers to the conflict-ridden eastern DRC. They will work alongside DRC security forces as well as troops from Tanzania and Malawi in fighting rebel groups, most prominently the M23 rebels, and bring peace and security to the region. However, many analysts in South Africa predict a major uphill task.
The problem with the intervention is that that region is huge geographically. And the second problem is that South Africa and the SADC forces do not understand the region as well as the rebels, because the rebels, that's their home. And they know the territory. They have been fighting the Congolese army since around 2009. So they have a good idea of the terrain, and that's a huge territory. So in a way, the South African forces, the SADC forces are almost sitting ducks because they don't know the region very well.
However, others say that since the South African troops have been deployed over time to the DRC, the task might not be as difficult as anticipated.
So you can understand that Congo has got more than 26 provinces. So our troops have the understanding, the language factor, to understand the local language when you're in a military peacekeeping mission. So our soldiers have been part of the standby brigade force before of the UN, led by South Africa, Malawi, Tanzania.
The troops from the SADC, led by the South African military, are replacing a regional force from East Africa, whilst the United Nations peacekeeping mission MONUSCO is set to wrap up operations there this year. That will end 20 years of UN efforts to maintain order in the region. Critics have pointed out that the SADC troops are not well resourced enough to undertake such a mission. The South African Defence Force has been experiencing financial constraints for a long time now. The force is overstretched and underfunded.
The resources are a big problem, but what we should understand is that last year, when there were discussions about sending this SADC force, SADC went to the UN and asked the UN for money. They said, now that the UN mission is going away, why don't you give us that money that you've been giving the UN? So the discussion from last year was, this is not going to be an exclusively SADC-funded force, because this is an international commitment. So the issue now is just how then South Africa and SADC can convince the UN to divert that budget to their force. But that's going to take some time. For now, they will have to operate with less resources.
The South African presidency says that the operation will cost over 2 billion rand. The troops' mandate is until the end of this year. Yuli Sanjabala for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.